you went to Jerusalem, you can see the Cardo, the main street that runs from north to south, and you can see Damascus Gate and Jaffa's Gate. And so this map is dated back to the 6th century, and also I'm going to talk about it for the next lecture. Can we move, please? Next slide, please, Sophia.
Yes, Ahmed, if you don't mind, just a couple of words about the Christianity in Jordan, the religious history, and then Petra will show up. Yes.
Yeah. Now, in Jordan here, we are actually a Muslim country. Most of the population in Jordan, we are about 10.5 million people here living in Jordan. Most of them, they are Arab Sunni Muslims, but we have a minority of Christians, about 4% of the total population. Those people are not strange to the country. They are part of the country. And actually, most of the people before the Islamic invasion to this area after the Battle of Yarmouk, or before the Battle of Yarmouk 636, they were all Christians. And this will show up when we talk about, in the number of churches that we have that are dated back to that period, which are hundreds of churches. In Jerash alone, that we talked about just a couple of minutes ago, in Jerash alone, there are more than 20 churches spreading all over the site, dated back to the 6th century, 5th and 6th century, and 7th century. And some of the churches actually are dated back to the 8th century. This means after the Islamic control over the area. So Christianity is not a strange religion to the country. It's part of this, the history of this area. It's part of the tradition of this region. But now, most of the population in Jordan, they are Arab Sunni Muslims. Okay. Can we move to the next one? Now, we came to the big one, Petra. Anybody of you knows what the word Petra means? Petra. Anybody? Now, Petra is a Greek word which means rock. Now, the Greeks, they called it rock because maybe they were referring to the topographical nature of that city, which is a rocky region, as some of you went to Petra, and so Petra, it's mountainous and surrounded by mountains. This is maybe one of the explanations for it. And the other one is that there was a campaign that was led by the Greek in the 4th century BC, 312, in a region, during the time of a leader called Antigonus. And this campaign, the Greeks, they mentioned that the Nabateans, they took shelter in a rock, which is a big mountain in Petra called a very flat surface area. And so the Nabateans, it is believed that the Nabateans used it as a shelter in time of danger. So the Greeks, they referred to that place and they called it the rock. And the Nabateans went and took shelter on top of that mountain, which is called So maybe it also refers to that rock that the Nabateans were taking shelter during the region or during when there's danger. Now, the city of Petra was uncovered for a long time, and it was rediscovered by a Swiss traveler called John Ludwig Brockhardin. Now, everybody was reading about Petra in the Greek sources, the Roman sources. After that, the city of Petra has a very long history, actually, or the region itself has a very long history that goes back to thousands of years ago. 15 minutes driving west of Petra, there was a site that was excavated called Beda. This site, I'm sorry I didn't include any slides of that site of here. It missed me, actually. But that site is dated back to a period called the Neolithic period. Neolithic, New Stone Age. It's dated back to about 8,000 to 7,000 BC. At that site, human beings, they built houses, they settled down, they started to practice agriculture. So when human beings discovered agriculture, they started to settle down, and we have a lot of villages in Jordan that goes back to that time. It is called Beda. So the human occupation started in that area around that time. We're talking about more than 10,000 years ago. And then we have the Edomites, if anybody of you heard about the Edomites, they were mentioned a lot in the Old Testament. The Edomites, they were controlling that area. Now, in the Iron Age, that's a period called the Iron Age period, started at 1200 BC until some historians push it down to about 332, the Hellenistic period or the classical period, when Alexander the Great came into this area. So those people, they were controlling the southern part of Jordan. It was called Edom. The Edomites, they established a kingdom in that area, and their capital was Busra or Busera, which is north of Petra at that time. And the flourishing time of that kingdom was around the 8th century BC. So also there were some remains that had been discovered in the region of Petra that goes back to that time. We're talking about the Iron Age period. The Nabateans. The Nabateans are the people who built the city of Petra, and we really, for sure, historians, they don't know when those people came and started to settle down in this area, but some historians believe that they came around the 6th century BC. And I told you about the Edomites, so it is believed that one of the Babylonian kings, Nebuchadnezzar, he came, in his way to destroy Jerusalem in the 6th century BC, he destroyed the 3 national kingdoms that existed in Jordan. The Edomites in the south, the Moabites in the south and the center, and Ammonites in the north with their capital of Bat Ammon or Amman, which is called Amman now. So it is believed that after that, the Nabateans came and started to settle down in that area. I'm talking about around the 6th century BC. But the first mention of the Nabateans in the historical sources are dated back to the 4th century BC, when this campaign that was made by Antigonus the One-Eyed against the Nabateans, 312 BC. And Diodorus of Sicily mentioned that campaign, and after an eyewitness, he mentioned, he described the Nabateans as being nomads, living in tents, they didn't drink wine or cultivate the land, and so they lived a simple life as it was described in that written source, Diodorus of Sicily. This is around the 4th century BC. But after that, we had some other historical records that mentioned the Nabateans in the 2nd century BC. And they were described as being settled people, living in houses, drinking wine, cultivating the land. And they were described as being very, very wealthy and very, very rich. Now, the wealth the Nabateans gained is believed to be from trade. Now, Nabatean Petra lies beside a very important trade route. It is called the King's Highway. The King's Highway was mentioned in the Old Testament with this name. Now, the King's Highway was mentioned during the story of the Exodus, when the Israelites were, according to the Old Testament, were ordered to go to the Promised Land. So they came from Sinai, from the south, and they started to head toward the north. So they took the King's Highway, and then they wanted to cross to the Promised Land. They first encountered the Edomites, as it is mentioned in the Old Testament, so they did not allow them to pass through. And then after that, they continued toward the north until they reached an area controlled by the Moabites. The Moabites also, they refused to give them access to go through their land to cross to the Promised Land until they reached to an area controlled by the Amorites. And then the Amorites allowed them to, they battled with them and they defeated them. And then from there, they crossed to the Promised Land. They went to Jericho because there's a site in Jordan called the Memorial of Moses, or Mount Nebo. It is believed that this is the place where Moses died in top of. And then the Israelites crossed from there to Jericho and then to Jerusalem. That's the name, the King's Highway, goes back to that story. But this trade highway, or this road, or this trade road played a very important role in the flourishing of the many civilizations or many people that lived there before the Nabateans, like the Edomites and other people. And a lot of civilizations like Egyptians, the Assyrians, they wanted to have access or to have control over this road. The Romans after them also wanted to have control over this road, the Greeks before them. So it was a very important road connecting Egypt through land, the Gulf of Aqaba, the Arabian Peninsula, through Jordan up to a town called Bosra in southern Syria, and then Palmyra. and then Damascus, and then to go to the King's Highway, to the Silk Road, China to India to bring incense, myrrh, frankincense from China and from India, and that's what brought wealth to the Nabateans. So this road played a very important role in the flourishing of the Nabateans and in the city of Petra and the Nabatean kingdom in general. The Nabateans, they controlled a very large area during their early history. It is believed that the Nabateans during the 2nd century, in about 85 BC, controlled Damascus, and they controlled Damascus for 15 years. The Nabatean kingdom at its flourishing time, at its peak, included most of Jordan, included the Negev, Sinai, parts of the Arabian Peninsula, which is called, there's a very important site in Saudi Arabia now, which is part of Saudi Arabia now, called the Hijra or Madain Saleh. It's a very important Nabatean site from that the Nabateans used to control. Can we go to the next one, please? Ofer? Hello, Ofer? Now, when we want to start a tour in Petra, you have to take into consideration that there will be a lot of walking, actually. The site of Petra is very huge, very big, a very big site. Actually, it's a national park, now 360 square kilometers, the national park itself, but the site is about 6 square kilometers. So you need to wear comfortable shoes, put on top sunblocks and hats. When you start the walk in Petra, to walk down to the city, there's an open trail which is about 800 meters, about a quarter of a mile. This is an open area, as you can see in front of you in the Sikh. And to your right, you'll see these monuments. When you are going down, actually these are people are going up, but when we go down, you will see those monuments to your right. These are called by the local people the jinn blocks. The jinnis, the spirits. Now, this Swiss traveler, John Ludwig Burckhardt, when he came into the city in 1812, John Ludwig Burckhardt was hired by a British fund to explore the Niger in Africa. So he's stationed in Aleppo, and he started to learn Arabic. So he spoke Arabic. So when he came into the place near Petra, he heard people, the local people, talking about the lost city. So he convinced one of the Bedouins to take him there. When they were going down, as the same trail that you see in front of you, he saw those monuments. So he asked this guy, what's this, what's that? He told him that these are called the jinn blocks. But of course, at that time, they didn't know what the jinn blocks were used for. They thought that the jinnis or the spirits made them. That's why they call them the jinn blocks. As you can see, actually, to the left of the picture, you can see that they cut these things from the mountains, and they shape them with this cubic shape. Some of them are decorated, as you can see, one of these monuments with engaged columns, with the friezes. To be honest with you, we don't know for sure what these monuments were used for, but a lot of people, they believe that they were used as tombs. There are more than 800 tombs spreading all over the site of Petra. And actually, most of the monuments that you will see when you go to Petra are tombs. And this is because those tombs were carved into the mountain, into the rock. They were not built like houses. But there are remains of houses and temples, as we will see when we go down at the center of the site. Can we move to the next one, please, Ofer? This is a more detailed view of the jinn blocks, and you can see in the top there are some what looks like a pyramid with stairs. These are called the cross steps by the Nabateans. The cross steps, this is an Assyrian influence from Mesopotamia. Now, the Nabateans, they believed in afterlife, and they believed that the person used to climb up these steps up to the sky. So these are staircases to heaven. This is a very popular motif that you'll see a lot on Petra and the facades of the tombs of Petra. And you can see the opening down there where they used to bury inside it. Some of them are solid, actually. Some of these monuments are solid, and they used to bury on top of them. There are shafts on top of them, and they used to bury on top of them. Can we move to the next one? Another detailed one for the jinn blocks with the engaged columns and the friezes at the top over there, the decorations. Next one. as you go down toward Petra or toward the Seek, the gorge, you will see another. Actually, there are a lot of monuments, but because of the time, we can't do all of them in just one lecture. But I choose to put the things that they were obvious, and you will see them in your way when you go down to the main or entrance for the site, which is the gorge. So this is called the entrance of the gorge. The lower part of it is called the entrance or the TRICLINUM, entrance of the gorge, TRICLINUM. A TRICLINUM is a Greek word consisting of two words, meaning a hall with stone benches. This hall has 3 stone benches, and it is believed that it was used as a hall to make funeral banquets. And according to one of the Roman sources, the Nabateans, they used to drink wine during these ceremonies, and they used to drink 11 times, each time from a different cup. In the lower part, you can see the Greco-Roman influence, or the very clear. The upper part of this monument is called obelisks, because of the obelisks surmounting the top of it. There are 4 of them, actually, 4 obelisks. And the Nabateans, they call them naifish, actually. They call these obelisks naifish, which means nafs. I think Ofer may know what naifish means. It means nafs in Arabic, or naifish in Hebrew. Nafs, soul. Each one represented a soul of a person that was buried inside that tomb. So there are 4 of them. And there's a niche with the relief of a man in the center. It could be that the man who made this tomb for himself and for his family, because those tombs were made for, they were used for a long time, for generations. They were inherited. So people used them for a long time. Now, with the Nabateans, when they used to bury the dead person, there are different ways of burial. They used to put him as the body as it is sometimes. They used some kind of cremation. They found some remains of some burns on some of the bodies that have been excavated, which were very few, because most of these tombs were looted in antiquities, actually, and in modern times, because they contained valuable things like the Egyptians. So the Nabateans, when they used to bury the dead person, they used to put things with them that they thought they may need to go to to use during their journey to the other life. Jewelry, vessels, daggers, a lot of things, and most of them have been looted from even antiquities. So the upper part, as you can see, reflects an Egyptian influence. And this is because the Nabateans, they have been influenced by many civilizations. They traveled to all of these places, so they have been influenced by those civilizations. The Greeks, the Romans after them, the Egyptians, the Iraq, the Assyrians, even in India. Can we move to the next one, please, Zafar? Now, over here, actually, I took this one picture. I thought it may be very helpful to show you how the Nabateans were very brilliant in hydraulic engineering. Now, Petra lies surrounded by mountains, as you can see the mountains down there in the picture. So it is surrounded by mountains. And the way that leads to Petra is a valley. It's called Wadi Musa, or Moses Valley. Wadi Musa starts from the top of the town of Wadi Musa, which is the modern town of Petra now. It's about 25,000 people live there, actually. So it's a relatively big town, restaurants and hotels. And then from there, you start to go down through this valley to the center of the site. So this valley goes down to the center of the site. Now, usually in winter time, sometimes we get flash floods, and these flash floods could be very, very dangerous. And in order to use the gorge that you see down there, you can see to the right, there is some kind of like a shop. And then that's the entrance of the gorge. We'll see another picture of it just in a bit. So in order to use the gorge all over the Nabateans, they built a dam. And they dug a tunnel called ALMUTHLEM. We'll see it also next. And then, so the flash floods coming down from Wadi Musa down to through the gorge, instead of going to the gorge, they will go to the Wadi ALMUTHLEM, which is to your right. You can see the yellow arrow referring to the Wadi ALMUTHLEM, and then around the mountains back to the main course of Wadi Musa near the Nymphium. So this shows you how those people were very brilliant in hydraulic engineering, and this is why one of the reasons why a lot of historians believe that those people, I mean the Nabateans, they came from Yemen. They originally came from Yemen because in Yemen there's a highly sophisticated canalization system, dams, channels, and all of that. So they believe that those people, they gained that experience from Yemen. And this is one of the reasons why historians believe that they came from Yemen. Can we move to the next one, please? Okay. Now, this is another reconstruction of the bridge. You can see the bridge over the dam that used to lead down into the gorge and then to the main entrance of the city. You can see to the right ALMUTHLEM tunnel that I told you about. The next picture, please. You'll see ALMUTHLEM tunnel. You see, this is ALMUTHLEM tunnel. It's about 80 meters long, which is about 240 feet by 10 meters high, about 33 feet. And this was carved by the Nabateans. So it's not natural, it was carved by them. So the water, instead of going into the gorge, will go through that tunnel and then around the mountains down to the center of the site to protect the monuments that the Nabateans made, and then also to use the main entrance for the city, the gorge, or the Seek, as we call it in Arabic, all over the year. Next one, please. Okay. Now, this is the entrance of the gorge. The gorge is a natural formation. It's about 1,200 meters long, which is less than 1 mile. So it's natural formation. Maybe it was caused by a big earthquake or a tectonic movement that led to the separation of the two parts of the gorge, and then water came down and started to widen it. So it's a natural formation. When those people came into this place, they choose the gorge, or this place to be their place of activity and living, and because it is naturally protected and it's easy to defend. Now, if you look to the left of the picture, you can see a base of an arch. This arch was standing until 1895, actually. 1895, it fell down because maybe of an earthquake, so there was an arch surmounting the top of the gorge. There was also a door, so they used to close it. In both sides of the gorge, there are two niches to hold a statue for a god or a goddess that they used to worship. The rock is from sandstone. It's from sandstone. Next one, please. Now, this is a reconstruction that was made after the David Roberts. David Roberts is a Scotch photographer. He took photos to Petra and paintings, called them the lithographs of David Roberts. So these are from 1839. So you can see the arch that I told you about still existing at the entrance of the gorge. Next one, please. Okay. Now, as I mentioned to you, the Seek is 1,200 meters long. It's a natural formation, and it's not the only entrance for the site, but it's the main one and the easiest one to go into the city. Now, there are some other entrances, but they are not as easy as this one. So you cannot go through these entrances with a big army and equipments, because it's very rough and very steep. Next one, please. This is one of the niches that I told you about in both sides of the gorge to hold a statue for a god or a goddess that used to stand over there in that niche to protect the main entrance for the city of Petra. Next one, please. Now, the Nabateans, as I told you, they were very, very skillful in hydraulic engineering. And when you go down into the gorge, you will see some of the magnificent work that they did to provide water for the city. Now, water is life, as we all know. We cannot live without water. This is one of the essentials, actually, musts of our life. So the city of Petra at its peak reached to, the population was estimated to be between 30 to 50,000 people. And you need to provide water for those people. And also you need to provide water for the people coming and visiting the place, caravans. Thousands of people every year coming to visit the site to trade from all over the world. Because at that time, talking about that time, because Petra was like the trade center of the region at that time. So to the left, you can see the water channel that used to bring water from a spring called the Springs of Moses. Springs of Moses is the entrance of the town of Wadi Musa, which is a couple of miles northeast of the site. This water channel was carved in the wall of the gorge, and it will go all the way down to the center of the site. But of course, a large part of this water channel is destroyed now because we're talking about 2,000 or more than 2,000 years ago. Now, the top of this water channel was covered by stone slabs to keep it clean. You have to take into consideration also, and to understand how genius those people were. The altitude, the difference between the altitude of the spring that they used to bring the water from down to the center of the site is very big. Now, the entrance of the site is at the entrance of the village of Wadi Musa, or the town of Wadi Musa. The spring is at the height of about more than around 4,000 feet above sea level. Now, over here at the gorge, at the center of the gorge, it's about 2,900 feet. So you have to control the flow of water through this water channel. This shows you how those people were very genius. And another one, the next one, please, Ofer, you'll see another water channel. This one is made from ceramic pipes, pottery pipes, clay, as you can see. So it was closed, but the pipes are broken. It's less than about 1 feet long pipe. They used to join them together. And this water channel used to bring the water from another spring west of Petra down to the site. Actually, the site also has a lot of underground cisterns to collect the rainwater, distributed all over the place, actually, not just the main site of Petra, because the whole area, the district around Petra, also they found remains like the suburbs of Petra and Wadi Musa. They found a lot of remains there. Little Petra also, there's a site about 15 minutes driving west of Petra called Little Petra. There are hundreds of cisterns over there. Can we move to the next one, please? Okay. This is the original pavement, the stone pavement of the gorge, but it's not all the way down. It's some patches of it, you'll see it. So this, the floor of the gorge was covered with this stone pavement, and all of it was covered with this stone pavement, but there are now some patches of it. It's not all over the gorge. Just parts, a few parts of it, actually. Now, this stone pavement is believed to be around the 1st century BC, from the 1st century, or the late years of the 1st century BC. Next one, please. Okay. Now, to be honest with you, there are a lot of studies about the Nabateans, but they are not fully, we don't have a lot of information about them. Those people, they didn't leave us annals like the Romans and the Greeks and the Romans after them dead. So most of the information that we have about those people came from their most enemies, the Greeks, the Romans. You can find, as I mentioned to you, the Diodorus of Sicily mentioned those people. Strabo also mentioned them. They are mentioned in the books of Josephus Flavius, the books of the Wars of the Jews and the Antiquities of the Jews. But those people, they are as being enemies for the Nabateans, so you don't fully trust the informations that they give you about them. Now, this is one of the what we call Beit El. Beit El is an Aramaic word consisting of two words, which means Beit, which is house, and El, which is God, house of the God. Now, house of the God, inside it you can see a relief of an idol that was worshipped by the Nabateans. As I mentioned to you, we don't know much about the religion, but it is believed that those people, they used to have more than 10 gods and goddesses that they used to worship. The most important god that they worshipped was called the Shara, the Lord of the Shara, the supreme god of the Nabateans. And he was the god of mountains, the god of the mountains surrounding Petra, Ashara mountains we call them actually. And then, as you can see in the niche, there's the idol over there, because in the Nabateans, in the early times of their religion, they didn't picture their gods and goddesses as human beings like the Greeks did and the Romans did. But later, in later periods, we have these statues of representing the human body in later periods of the Nabatean history. And so We have another goddess that they worshipped called Al-Uzza. She was believed to be the wife of the Shara. She was the goddess of dignity and strength and fertility. And there was Lat, the goddess of war, Qaus, the god of trade, LG, the goddess of the city of LG, which is, they found an inscription outside of the main site of Petra, which is in Wadi Musa now, or the town of Wadi Musa, excuse me, mentioning the name of this goddess, the goddess of LG. Can we move to the next one, please, Ofer? Another monument that you'll see in your way down into, when you go down to the city of Petra, because we are still in the way, we are still walking through the gorge, as I told you. Another Beit El, this is representing two idols. The one to your left has a squared eyes and a rectangular nose. The other one is just a block stone. It's smaller, which means that it is less important, because the bigger, the more important, the smaller, the less important. So the Shara could be represented by the idol with the squared eyes and the rectangular nose. You can see the engaged columns, but the capital that you see is different. It's not Corinthian, it's not Doric or Iolic. It's a Nabatean invention. It's the concave knob capital. So it's concave, and in the center there's a knob that was invented by the Nabateans. And the frieze in the top, you can see the metope and the triglyph. This is a Greco-Roman influence. And the holes could be for holding incense burners to burn incense during the ceremonies, because you know that during that time, incense was very important. And actually, incense was the biggest commodity that the Nabateans traded with. That's what most brought them wealth. They used to bring it from Yemen, incense, myrrh, frankincense, and this is the biggest commodities that they traded with, and that's what brought them wealth. Can we move to the next one, please? Another one for the idol that I told you about, just from far away, to show you how it looks like. It's the biggest monument in the Sikh, actually, or the gorge. And you can see the colors at the top. You can see different colors inside these rocks. So you can see the yellow, the red, the gray, in some places black. These are because of the oxidized minerals. Actually, the red color that you see in the comes from the oxidized iron. So that's what gives it the red color of these rocks, the sandstone rocks. Next one, please. Now, after we go out from the gorge, you'll be faced by this. This is the treasury. It is called the treasury of the Pharaoh of Egypt. Local people, they call it the treasury of the Pharaoh of Egypt because they believe that the Pharaoh of Egypt made it. The local people at that time, they were Bedouins. They didn't know anything about the history of the Nabateans or so anything big and huge. They will say that it was made by the Pharaoh of Egypt. This is the highlight of Petra. The treasury is 25 meters by 39.5 meters high. It was carved in the mountain. It was totally carved. It's not built. And the technique they used to climb up the cliff, made terraces, leveled it to zero, and then make terraces and then start gradually to carve it from up down. So it was carved from up down. As you can see in the treasury, it reflects a lot of Greco-Roman influence. Some people say that it was made by artists from Athens or Rome. Well, the Nabateans, they were wealthy. I don't deny that. Maybe they had some help from those people. They brought them and they paid them. But this, as you will see, the Nabateans, they built a civilization that controlled most of the area from the 2nd century BC to the 2nd century AD. So those people also, they were brilliant. But this does not mean that they have not been influenced by other civilizations or they didn't ask for help from others. The treasury that you'll see inside of you, it's the room is about 15 square meters only. So it's a small room. And in both sides of the main entrance, there are 2 chambers. The main function of those two chambers on the side of the entrance is to support the weight of the mountain. Now, imagine if those two rooms were not there. The mountain, the weight of the mountain will be centered in the center of this thing, and then it will crush it. So to distribute the weight of the mountain, they made those two side rooms. And they had been used maybe also for funeral ceremonies or for burials. The treasury consists, as you can see, of 2 stories. The lower one has 6 columns. And in both sides of the lower story, you can see 2 men leading 2 horses. These are the Dioscuri, the 2 sons of Zeus, Castor and Pollux, actually. One of them is going to the east, the other one is going to the west. They are the patrons of trade, and it is believed that they also had another job, which is to carry the dead people to the other life. As I told you, the Nabateans, they believed in the other life. The capitals are Corinthian. In the frieze, I'm sorry, the picture is not very clear, but in the frieze, you can see a chalice and the vine scroll. The chalice is the symbol of the god Dionysius. And then we have the pediment surmounted by the solar disk, which is the symbol of Isis. 2 cornucopia, 2 wheat ears. And Isis was an Egyptian goddess that was worshipped in Egypt, but it was the spread of worshipping Isis also came into the Nabateans, maybe from around 55 BC when the Romans were able to control Egypt. And Isis has something to do with death also. She had powers of resurrection. You know, every year she used to resurrect her husband Osiris during the harvesting season. So maybe also the Nabateans worship this goddess. The upper part you can see in the two symmetrical panels. You can see a figure of a woman with a skirt. These are the Amazons, the women fighters. There are 6 of them actually, and they are protecting this place. In the center we have what we call the rounded temple, or the Tholos in the Roman architecture. And the whole thing is surmounted by the urn, URN, urns. You know, the urns are used to put ashes of cremated bodies on them. And as I told you, the research on the Nabateans is still, we need a lot of things to answer about those people. As I mentioned to you, they used to bury the dead person as it is, or sometimes they did some cremation. And so it's not really, they didn't use only one mean of burial. They used many of those burial means. In front of the treasury, there is a place that you can sit and have tea over there, relax for a couple of minutes, take a picture on a camel. And let's continue to the other one, please. Now, a couple of years ago, I don't remember exactly which year, but I think it was maybe in 2004, something like that. They did an excavation in front of the treasury, and they found the remains of 2 tombs, like this one, and another one just next to it. Those tombs, they found the remains of 7 bodies on them, 7 skeletons with their belongings. And as I told you, the Nabateans, they used to bury the person with, and they put things with them that they thought they may need during their journey to the other life. So this means that maybe the floor in front of the treasury is not the original floor. The dirt was brought by the water after the dam was destroyed. So the water brought the water accumulated and covered the whole thing. That goes down for about 12 feet, actually. This is going down for 12 feet. Can we go back to the other picture, please? Now, I'm sorry, in front of the treasury, there's a flat area. So these tombs exist in front of the treasury, in front of the treasury, those 2 tombs. So it is believed that maybe the guy or the king who made this monument was buried down those tombs with his family, or maybe he was buried inside the treasury. And in later period, it is believed that this monument was used as a temple to worship one of their kings, Ubadah I, who was buried in the Negev, because the Negev was part of the Nabatean kingdom, actually. And one of their kings was buried there, Ubadah I. And that's why there is a very big important site in the Negev called Abdat, after the name of this king, Abdat. It was a station connecting Petra between Petra and Gaza. Because the city of Gaza was was a very important seaport for the Nabateans in the Mediterranean. So the tombs that maybe the king who made this monument, and it is believed that maybe it was Aretas IV, because this monument is dated back to the late years of the 1st century BC and the early years of the 1st century AD. Now that there was a king, a very important king called Aretas IV. He ruled from 9 BC until 40 AD. So it is believed that it was made for him. That's why it is dated back to that time, the time of Aretas IV. So it is believed that maybe when this monument was turned into a temple, they took the bodies and then put them down in those tombs and they reused it as a temple. Or maybe it was a memorial for the king who was buried on those tombs down there. Can we go to the next one, please? This one, the tomb that we talked about, the other one, and next one, please, go for time. Another picture for the tombs that I told you about and the yard that exists in front of the treasury. As I mentioned to you, those tombs go down for about 12 feet, about 4 meters below the surface of this floor. Next one, please. Now, after you go out from the gorge, the outer gorge, you'll see that is called the street of facades, because there are many facades that you will see in front of you, and all of these facades, they are all tombs. They are all tombs. Now, in the back of the picture, you can see the outer gorge that leads to the treasury. So we came from down there, and then we are walking down to the center of the site. So all of these monuments that you see in front of you, they are all tombs made. And one that you are looking at now to the left, this is called the Unaysho tomb. Unaysho, because there's an inscription mentioning the name of this person. Unaysho was the minister of Shakilat. Minister, or the brother of Shakilat, which means the minister. So brother in the Nabatean language meant minister of Shakilat. Shakilat was one of the queens. She was a queen that ruled after the death of her husband. Her son, Rabil II, he was the last Nabatean king. He ruled from 70 AD until 106 AD after the Romans took over the city. So she was the queen until her son became old enough to be a king. So those people, they were very open. They were very open society. They were very democratic society, actually. It is believed that according to one of the writing that had been found, that the king, he used to serve his guests by himself, you know, he used to serve them by himself, not by servants. Can we go to the next one? This is one of the facades of the tombs that you will see also to the left when you are going down to the center of the site. This one in front of you shows you how they used to make these or to carve these monuments. They started from the top. As you can see, they started with the decorations, the cross steps, as you can see to the left over there, the staircases for heaven. And then when they wanted to dig for the room for the burial, you can see that a crack happened, so they had to leave it. So they didn't finish it. It's unfinished. Next one, please. These are also tombs were made for less important people, maybe middle-class people, but still we are in the same area, street of facades. And they are all tombs. Can we go to the next one, please? Now, this is the theater. The theater, it's a Roman-style theater, as you can see, the semicircular orchestra with the stage. But the only difference with this between this theater and the other Roman theaters, that the seats are carved out of the rock. They are not built in vaults like other Roman theaters. And in the back, you can see the remains of the tombs that existed. So in the Roman period, when the Romans took over the city, this was in 106 AD, in time of an emperor called Trajan, they enlarged the theater. And then they had to sacrifice some of the tombs that existed in order to enlarge the theater. So the holes or the caves that you see in the back are the remains of the tombs that existed at that time. This theater is dated back, as you told, to the first centuries. The origin of it, 1st century AD, but later it was believed to be enlarged when the Romans took over the city in 106 AD. Next one, please. Now, the royal tombs. To the right, when you are going down to the center of the site, you'll see these amazing monuments. Can we go to the next one, please? And then we'll go back to this one first. Yes. Now, this one here, before the other tombs, this is called the urn tomb because of the urn surmounting the top of it. As you can see it, you can go up to this monument, about 400 stairs. Actually, this is the easiest trail to climb in Petra because most of the monuments, like the high place of sacrifice, the monastery, it's a really long hike, but this is the easiest one. So this is the urn tomb. It was a tomb for one of the Nabatean kings or princes and princesses. That's why they are called the royal tombs. And below it, under it, you can see these arches. These were made in the Byzantine period. In the Byzantine period, this monument was turned into a church. We know that because there is a writing, graffiti, on one of the walls of this monument referring to Bishop Jason, and this was in around the 5th century AD, 427 AD. It was turned into a church. So the Christianity came into Petra around that time. We're talking about the 5th century. Christianity came to Petra a little bit later than other places. So the monuments or the arches that you see below those, this monument, they are the part of rooms that had been reused during the Byzantine period to use them as rooms for dwelling, rooms for shelter, for storage, for the for the church. Excuse me, sorry. From the top over there, if you go up there, it will give you a very beautiful panoramic view over the site and will give you a perspective how huge, how big the site is. Next one. Now, these are also next to it, actually, in the other side. The Silk Tomb, just to the right, and then you go further, the Corinthian tomb, because of the Corinthian capitals. It's a duplicate of the treasury, but it's really in a very bad shape, as you can see, because all of these monuments are facing west and southwest. And all the monuments facing west and southwest are really very, very bad in shape because the wind usually blows from the west and the southwest. As we saw in the treasury back there, it was really in a very good shape because it was protected from the wind and the rain, and that's what kept it in a good condition. But these monuments are not. They are exposed to the rain and to the wind. That's why they are really in a very bad shape. Next to the Corinthian tomb, in the left side of your left side of the picture, you can see what is called the palace tomb. It's called the palace tomb because it is resembling the Roman palaces, consisting of 3 stories. The first 2 stories were carved into the rock, and the third one was built from stone because the mountain finished. That's why they had to continue the 3rd story from stone. And actually, if we go further to the left, also there are also other tombs. As I told you, the site is really very, very huge and very big. Next one, please. Another one. This is we talked about the urn tomb, or the local people called it the court, actually, because they believed that it was a court. It was not. As I told you, it was turned into a church. Next, after that. Yes. All right. Now, I'm sorry for the picture, and I'm not really very good with computers, so I did my best to do this arrow referring to the white shelter that you see on top of that hill. This is actually a church from the Byzantine period. It is dated back to the 5th and 6th centuries AD. It was excavated by the American Center of Oriental Research in the 90s of the last century. Can we move on to the next one, please? Next, yes. This is a one for the picture from the inside. It's a basilica type church, the 3 apses. You can see the one in the center, and then 2 apses, the northern aisle and the southern aisle. The floor of this church is paved with marble slabs, and you can see after the wooden screen over there, there's the part of the original marble pavement, but the rest is reconstructed. Next one. Now this is the mosaic floor that is covering one of the northern aisle. I guess this is the southern aisle. Sorry, and you can see a fisherman with the animals, birds, different representations referring to Jesus Christ and to the Christianity. The other one, please. Next one. This is from the Northern Aisle, and it's covering the Northern Aisle of the church. So the mosaic floor representing the flora and the fauna of the world, different kinds of plants, animals, birds from all over the area, the world, not just from Petra. Now, in this church, during the excavations of this church, they found the remains of 142 papyrus scrolls, carbonized papyrus scrolls. These papyrus scrolls, they were very, very fragile. So they had to work on them for about 10 years until they were able to unroll them, and then after that to read them. And it turned out that they contained valuable information about the city at that time. We're talking about the 5th century, 6th century. Some historians push it up to the 7th century AD. So they contained very important information about the city. There were marriage, contracts, inheritance, disputes between neighbors. So the church was like an archive for the city. These papyrus scrolls are really very important in studying the history of Petra during that time. It mentioned a lot of places and areas that existed during that period. We are talking about the 5th century and 6th century AD. Now, Petra believed to be inhabited until around the 7th century AD, because after the 7th century AD, there are archaeological excavations that didn't find any human remains from that time. So it is believed that the city was abandoned after that date, after the 7th century AD. And it is believed that the city of Petra was abandoned for many reasons. The first one is the shifting of the trade routes. People started to use the sea more than the land. Earthquakes that hit the city, a lot of earthquakes hit the city. There was a big one in 363, and there's a very big one in the 6th century, and the last big one was in the 8th century, about 749 AD. It was a very big earthquake that destroyed most of the archaeological sites in the region, not just in Jordan. It is believed that it was about 6.9. So the city after the 7th century, it is believed that the city was abandoned. People left the city. We don't know what happened to the people who used to live there. Maybe they went back to the original way of life that they started with, the nomadic way of life, or maybe they just left the city and spread all over the area, and maybe outside of Jordan too. Because we know that Bedouins used to try there until the establishment of Jordan 1921, and even after that, actually, Bedouins, they used to move from one place to another place because there were no borders. The next slide, please, Ofer. Now, when you walk down at the same side of the church, you can see the remains of a temple called the Temple of the Winged Lions. This temple was excavated in the 70s of the last century, and it is called the Temple of the Winged Lions because during the excavations, they found the remains of reliefs of winged lions on both sides of the entrance of the temple. This is this temple. We don't know the name of the gods or the goddesses that have been worshipped in those temples because we'll see another 2 temples actually. But that's why they are called the Temple of the Winged Lions. During the excavation, they found a figurine of Isis, the Egyptian goddess of fertility. So it is believed that maybe it was worshipped with this god, or this temple is associated to that goddess, Isis. In the temple, there's a cubic shape thing that maybe the people used to go around, like the Kaaba. This is a practice that had been practiced by Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula, in Yemen, and now until Islam came. Actually, the Kaaba, before Islam, the Arabs, they used to do pilgrimage to Mecca, and they used to go around the Kaaba, the cubic-shaped building. So a lot of people also believe that maybe the Nabateans, they came from Yemen because this kind of worshipping was also spreading in Yemen at that time. Next, please. Now, this is the Great Temple of Petra. The Great Temple of Petra, because it's the biggest complex up to now in Petra. It is about 73,000 square feet, 7,000 square meters. Huge, huge complex. It's called the Great Temple of Petra. It was excavated by Brown Universities, and they started the excavations in 1995. And it took them about 10 years to uncover it. And you will, there will be a lot of things to be discovered in Petra. So it's a huge complex. It's the biggest one in Petra. It's called the Great Temple of Petra. And as I mentioned to you, really, we don't know the name of the god or the goddess that were worshipped there for sure, because we don't have any inscriptions or writings. And this is one of the problems that we are facing in Petra, the lack of inscriptions. What have been found is mostly epigraphs, inscriptions on facades of tombs, mentioning the name of the guy who was buried there or who made it. But maybe there was some kind of inscriptions or writings, but they were made from wood or marble or gold, and they were stolen or lost during this long time. So there will be a lot of things to discover in Petra, because the site is very huge, and what have been excavated of Petra is less than 10% of the total area of the site. Can we move to the next one, please? Another picture of the Great Temple. You can see it to your left, and then the colonnaded street that leads down to the center of the site, just in the front of you. Also in the front of you, you can see the remains of the monumental gate. We call it the gate of the Temenos, the entrance of the Temenos of the temple of the daughter of the pharaoh, which is in the back of the picture. This gate used to lead to the Temenos. The Temenos is the yard that existed in the front of the temples, because at that time, common people were not allowed to go inside the temple. So the high priest would perform inside the temple, and then the other people will stand outside. The colonnaded street is believed to be was paved or made. This one, or this part of it, was made during the Roman period, when the Romans took over the city in 106 AD. In 106 AD, Trajan took over the city, and it became part of the Roman Empire. And the Romans renamed the area Provincia Arabia, or the province of Arabia, and they moved the capital to Busra in southern Syria. But the city of Petra was recognized as a big city, as a metropolitan. Actually, the Roman governor at that time, he was called Sextius Florentinus. There was a tomb that exists in Petra, actually, called the Sextius Florentinus tomb. It is dated back to 127 AD. So the Roman governor of the city of Petra at that time chose to be buried like the Nabateans. So the influence of the Nabatean culture was also very deep on the Romans. So the colonnaded street leads down to the center of the site, leads down to the Temenos of the temple of the daughter of the pharaoh that you see in front of you. And you can see the Wadi Musa. Just 1 minute, please. Can we go back to the other one, please? And you can see just to the right, the Wadi Musa, or the Moses Valley, that goes down to the center. You can see that the walls that so that they could control the flow of water. These were reconstructed, but in the Nabatean period, they were walls like this so that they could control the flow of water coming down from Wadi Musa. And as I told you, they were flash floods, and they were really very dangerous. That's why they built the dam at the entrance of the gorge, if you remember. Okay, next one, please. Now, another picture for the temple of the daughter of the pharaoh. It's 23 meters high, and you can see all of it actually, and most of it is still as it was from that time, from the Nabatean period. And you see how huge and how big this temple is. And it is believed that it is a temple that has influence from Yemen, because they have also this, I forget the word, how to say it, if you can help me, Ufer, like the cubic shape thing that they used to go around to worship their gods and goddesses. Now, the last one The last one, this is the monastery at DEIR in Arabic. DEIR in Arabic monastery. Well, it's not easy to go there actually. After you finish the center, there's a restaurant to the right or to the left. You could have lunch there if you want to. And then after lunch, you could climb up for this monument. It's 48 meters by 45 meters. Very huge. It's almost 2 times bigger than the treasury. But as you can see, it's almost the same style with less decorations. It's called the monastery or a DEIR because it was turned into a church in the Byzantine period. And that's why it's called the monastery. Now, it is believed that it was a tomb for a very important Nabatean king. The urn that you see at the top is 9 meters high, about 38 meters, 38 feet high. So it's very huge and very big. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I hope to see you in Jordan soon, guys. If you have any question, I'm ready to answer it.
Thank you. First, thank you very much for the very. And then I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, please.
Very well. You were referring to some little inscription that was written.
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Is the
Yes, I can now. Yes.
Yeah, I was wondering what would be the inscription. I mean, what kind of language would they write?
Oh, I didn't mention that. I'm sorry. Now, the Nabateans, as I mentioned to you, it is believed that they came from Yemen. Okay, so they were Arabs. They spoke Arabic. But the language or the writing that they used Aramaic.
Aramaic.
Now, Arabic developed from Aramaic, as developed from Aramaic, and then but Arabic kept developing. Aramaic is a dead language now, but Arabic kept developing. That's why it's more complicated. Even in Hebrew, also the Hebrew language developed from Aramaic. So the Hebrew and Arabic are really very similar. There are a lot of words similar to each other, but Hebrew was, people stopped using Hebrew for a long time, and then they started to use it again. But Arabic, they kept using it, so it developed into a very complicated language. But the Nabateans, they were Arabs, they spoke Arabic, and the script that they used, or the letters that they used, is Aramaic language.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Ahmad. Does anybody have any further questions that you want to unmute your mic and ask Ahmad? I think we have some questions coming in from the chat here, Ahmad. Let me just see here. No, it's just a few comments here. If anybody wants to ask a question, you're welcome to unmute yourself. Meanwhile, Ahmad, I have a client that travels to Israel and Jordan, and everywhere she goes, she takes pictures. So last time in Egypt, we saw the pictures of the painting of the felucca that she made. You remember, Wafika? And now last time she was in Petra, she made a picture. She took a picture of a camel and then created a painting from it. So this is a this is a painting of, she calls it Another Day in the Office. Deanna, I don't know if you're with us or not, but she agreed that I would show this on the presentation. And so Ahmad, for next week, as we said, are we okay for next week about the rest of Jordan? If you have the time and the energy.
What? I have all the time, man. There's nothing to do. I'm stuck at home.
Yeah, I think all the guides.
Actually, yeah. It's really very interesting. I'm sorry because of the, I think there are a lot of things that I didn't talk about because, as I told you, Petra is a very, very big and huge site. And if you want to really talk about Petra, you need hours. And people who visited Petra, they know that. So yeah. I tried to just to talk about the highlights, the main thing that a normal tourist would see in his tour to Petra, because there are other things that you will not see unless you climb up for, like the high place of sacrifice, for instance. It's a very long hike that takes for about 3 hours.
And this is an excellent introduction to a question we have here from Anne, who's asking, how long would you need to visit to see all the sites we saw in Petra today? I would recommend, normally I recommend to my clients to give Petra 2 full days. which is one day, you know, visiting the site itself, as well as enjoying an event called Petra by Night,
Yes.
which I think is very special, where they light up the whole
But
area.
anybody who wants to do that, well, I hope that it will be soon.
Yes.
They have to take in their consideration that the Petra by Night is not every day.
It's
Petra
Monday,
by Night
Wednesday, and
is
Thursday.
Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Right. And then the
Monday,
following day, they can also visit Little Petra or maybe Wadi Ram on the way, which we will see next week. Yeah.
I'm sorry I didn't have any pictures of Little Petra.
We could do that next week, yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Well, next week there are a lot of things to talk about. Until now, I have about 36 slides.
Well, it's not easy.
I'm not finished.
It's not easy for any of the guides to you know, to put their whole country into 1 hour. I know that. So
I know it's and actually sometimes what you see that is, you know, is important for you as a tour guide, maybe it is not for another one from my historical background. In my experience, actually, just to say something about the question, how long do you need to go to do Petra? But also you have to take in your consideration that Petra, there's walking, there's climbing. So you have to know your limits, yeah? And this is something actually really everybody has to know what can he do, okay?
yes.
This is something actually as a tour guide we have been through, and I have experience about that. People, they say that we can walk, but actually sometimes you have to take into consideration they are not walking in a paved street. Sometimes it's uneven. But in general, I would recommend that a full day, you know, you come visit Petra, and the best thing to do is to stay the night, you know, just to relax.
Yes.
To relax, you know, after the hard work in Petra, you are not pushed in time, because some people they come, some people they come from Aqaba, from Israel, just for a one-day tour, and then it will be very strict, and they don't have time, and you have to do it very fast. But the best thing is to do it slowly, and you should be relaxing. So the best thing is to visit Petra and then stay the night in one of the hotels that exist in Petra, and there are many of them, as you know, Fer.
Yes, yes,
And
some
then,
fantastic ones.
or maybe the next day in the early morning, you can do something just, you know, something simple, or a couple of hours like Little Petra, and then
Okay.
continue.
Very good. So next week we'll talk about the rest of Jordan, which is so much information about the Roman Empire and about Christianity and about Judaism, and of course Islam, and of course the beautiful markets and the maps of Madaba and Mount Nebo and the Dead Sea and the Aqaba. So there's a lot to cover, and we'll do that next week for the rest of Jordan. Everybody knows about Petra, but Jordan itself is just an amazing destination without Petra even. And thank you all again to everybody who joined us today. I really appreciate your time and showing up every weekend. We will see you again next week. And thank you, Ahmad, for your time and for your expertise and information. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you, Ofer, for this opportunity, and I will see you next week, inshallah.
You bet,
And,
inshallah.
bye, everybody, and stay safe.
Okay. Shalom, shalom,
Bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.